Hello, everybody. Thank you for watching. We are here to discuss Zelda in 2021 because I figured, hey, since we just passed the 35th anniversary of the Zelda franchise, I thought, what would be a better way to talk about Zelda than with Zelda or Nintendo creators? Can I have y'all introduce yourselves really quick?
I guess I'll go because ladies. Oh, I'm hitting my mic. Ladies first. Hi, everybody. My name's Miss Click. I do stuff on the internet and I love Zelda, so I guess that makes me a Zelda creator.
Yeah.
Though there are some obvious bigger legends in this room, so very happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Says the one that is officially recognized by Nintendo as the Zelda lore master.
Man, you're just coming at me with this because I know for a fact you wanted to be there and just mop the floor with me.
No, it's fine. It's cool. Anyways, my name is HMK. I love The Legend of Zelda. I do a lot of things with Nintendo, Kingdom Hearts, Square Enix, all that good jazz. But Zelda has been and always will be my number one true love. And I hope to see more of that this year. But yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Wiley. I'm a Dutchman. I crawled out of a hole and I just made Zelda content and Super Mario content. That's kind of it. Been doing it for years. Grew up with the stuff, you know. It's kind of my dopamine. So I'm excited for next year, especially, and this year. My God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm, as you know, Conrad, Commonwealth Realm. I've been doing Zelda for too many years now, and yeah, I still love Zelda just as much. Just look at my hat. It explains it all. This is the year of Zelda.
It's a nice hat.
5 years of Breath of the Wild.
Fabulous.
Let's get into it.
And we shall. So, Zelda in 2021 marked the 35th anniversary of Legend of Zelda series, and the fans remembered it, and so did Al Numa, and that was pretty much it. So
And Smash.
Sakurai as well.
Yeah.
So, guys, what did y'all think about the 35th anniversary in general for Zelda?
It could have been a lot better, in my opinion, because I mean, like, the big culmination to the 35th anniversary, like, honestly, was this. And
Yeah.
I mean, this is cool. Like, don't get me wrong. It glows in the dark in the back.
And this.
And
this.
and these. So I mean, like,
Yeah.
they did acknowledge it, sure, but I really wish they would have acknowledged it a little bit more. And like, I know, same from a Zelda fan, when it comes to other people in other communities celebrating their 35th anniversary for other games such as Metroid, and that seems a little bit selfish considering that Metroid hasn't had anything huge happen until now. But I mean, at the same time, you know, we're on the heels apparently going into Breath of the Wild too. And Skyward Sword HD was definitely neat. You know, the Age of Calamity DLC was neat. This was neat, but I mean, I just felt like something could have been bigger, a little bit more in terms of maybe like books or more information on Breath of the Wild too. I understand we're going through a pandemic right now, and obviously that rules out the orchestra. Symphony of the Goddess couldn't make a return for the 35th anniversary. So, you know, they did something, but it just left a lot to be desired, in my opinion.
For sure.
Yeah, they could have done more with it, I guess. But I think the main reason why they didn't end up doing that much, not like real life events, the orchestra, the whole kit and caboodle, is because of COVID. That kind of ruins it. You can't really plan such things, and then, yeah, we're gonna do this, and then restrictions roll in or whatever, like things happen, and then you have to cancel everything again. So I think that kind of made it a bit less exciting. But still, I mean, the Joy-Cons were nice, even though they might drift after a month, and then you know, so yeah, I don't know, could have been better, but certainly not horrible.
Personally, I think they did quite a decent amount for this anniversary. We got the Game and Watch release, as HMK explained. We got new amiibos. We got the first Zelda-themed Joy-Cons, and most of all, it was the year of Skyward Sword. Skyward Sword HD was a very good improvement on the original, both in terms of controls, but also making the game far more streamlined. Especially the opening is far faster now than it used to be. And many have been complaining that getting into Skyward Sword has been kind of difficult because of that opening hour or two getting to the first dungeon. But now, when that was fixed, I would say Nintendo did quite a decent job. Yes, they didn't manage to provide the 20th Zelda game, that being Breath of the Wild sequel, but it was to be expected because of how long it takes to develop games these days. we are 5 years since the launch of Breath of the Wild, and the sequel probably started development, and then I mean proper development, at the end of 2017. So I don't think we could have expected more, except for maybe one thing: a proper logo. That's the only thing.
I would agree with that. Or even obviously like the title and the launch window itself, you know, Nintendo tends to be very calculated when it comes to launch windows, but definitely the title. I'm gonna be going to everybody's channels when the title gets revealed, because I cannot wait to see all of y'all's minds going, because I know mine will be, because apparently it's supposed to be a huge teaser. But obviously I am a little biased. I think this year was well, the anniversary year, I should say, for Zelda was, I think, as good as it probably could have gotten. Kind of basically a lot of things, obviously with the pandemic going on, like there was a lot of things that got put on hold or pushed back, not just for Zelda in general, but for Nintendo and any other developers schedule. And we're still feeling those effects, you know, even 2 years, you know, later. So I really do think for everything that was going on, the fact that we had Joy-Cons at the ready that people could get, they had amiibo, I think, that were distributed pretty fairly. I still think, you know, obviously like people getting their hands on things and scalpers and stuff like that is still a nightmare. But I really do think that even just like the Game and Watch, even though again, like you were holding it up, like for me personally, I would have been okay with, you know, Virtual Console, or everybody was wanting like the Twilight Princess Wind Waker. I think we still have a ton of time when it comes to those things, but yeah, with the pandemic, I think it was very tough. But I think overall, considering the circumstances, I was pretty pleased. But again, they also did a lot of like extracurricular activities too. So like they teamed up with Amazon and they did a whole Skyward Sword event, you know, and they flew a bunch of us creators out to talk about that into Atlanta, Georgia. And it was just a really, really cool thing that I think they're kind of branching out and trying new things with. And I can't wait to see what new things they try in the future, especially every 5 years we get that special anniversary kind of vibe. As long as it gets more love than Metroid, I think we'll be okay.
That's a roast and a half.
Dang.
I'm sorry.
Dang.
No,
I
I'm
do
glad
agree.
Metro fans are eating though. So
No,
Yeah, I mean, Metroid fans are finally getting something, but what you pointed out with the whole Twilight Princess HD and Wind Waker HD, now, if they did that, then I would have said this is like, you know, like creme de la creme. If they brought like Majora's Mask 3DS and Ocarina of Time in like a bundle pack to the Switch, or TP and Wind Waker in a like a bundle to the Switch, that would have completely sold it for me for like a perfect 35th. But aside from that, I can't really think of anything they could have done differently to make it even better, you know?
I'm kind of
Right.
picky though when it comes to like, I know we gotta move on. I don't want to dominate
You're
the
good, you're good.
the topic, but I will say when it comes to like the 3D, I'm kind of glad they brought the originals over to the NSO, because
Yeah.
I don't like the way they changed the bosses. Especially
Yeah, but
for
that's-
Majora's Mask.
in
Yeah.
Majora's
Yeah,
Mask.
Majora's Mask is
Yeah.
Majora's Mask was absolutely ruined in the 3DS version, in my opinion. They changed
I
so many
wouldn't say
things that
ruined.
were.
Well, the boss fights, you know.
Have you
Some
thought
were-
Twin Mold? There are
Some were
bugs
bet-
in Twin Mold.
No. Like some were better, some were like really bad. Like Twin Mold, definitely. Like the way they did that,
Horrendous.
redid that boss fight was good. Wasn't good. But I liked how they redid the Alduin fight, and I like how they redid the Gork
You
fight.
like
Yeah.
what?
What about Go?
Yeah.
You like how they redid
Oh,
Go?
Alduin was so easy in the original, man. Like, come
Yeah,
on.
but you
Yeah.
but now he's just predictable and like every other
And-
Zelda boss.
It's
Bro, at least he had like
Bro,
functions this
They
time.
got us on a tangent.
My
Like,
my main
we
issue
can
with
save
Majora's Mask 3D
Mask for when we get to
and
2022.
po-
all right,
Yeah,
all
that's
right,
the thing.
fair,
All
fair.
right,
All right,
yeah,
we'll put
yeah,
this
yeah.
on hold because I'll tear him to shreds. I
Because-
swear to God.
Okay.
okay.
Because like either way, we'd be here for hours talking about Majora's Mask.
Yep.
Anyway, but yeah. So how would you go down the list of everything that happened in 2021? So the first thing I put down here is Age of Calamity, which we had the expansion pass DLC, which I liked. It was good.
Mhm.
Like
I thought it was cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't it wasn't what I was expecting, to be honest. Like I was not expecting like a whole like link tree to like, you know, get all these new things from the
Mhm.
lab, but hey, it was fun. And then we got actual story content in Wave 2. And
Mhm.
honestly, I liked it. It's just the only good thing about it was like, you know, some new cutscenes that we got, but other than that, it was okay. But it was still fun. It was still fun.
I feel like Age of Calamity, once we found out what it was really about, like when we first saw the trailer, we're like, oh, this is gonna be depressing.
Oh, yeah.
And then you play the game and you're like, I'm kind of sad it's not depressing, but also I like this a little bit.
I'm depressed. I'm not being depressed. Like, no, that's great.
Yeah, because I was like, they're showing this trailer and I'm thinking about it. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then, when the plot twist happens and everything, I don't want to spoil anything for anyone, but it definitely is a little bit of a conflicting feeling. Like, wait a minute.
Mm-hmm.
They're pulling a classic kind of Zelda thing. Like, this is a Hyrule Warriors Zelda thing.
Yeah.
And overall, it was good. So I think subsequent story a little bit doesn't hold as much weight, I think, as a lot of people were wanting it to. Overall, it is just it is a good feeling game. And obviously, like, it's good feeling aside from mechanics. Obviously, like things like frame rate. I do hope that one day when the definitive edition goes to the next console, whatever it is, because we know that's what happens, hopefully it'll run smoother. But I mean, it was good. I'm personally like, I love challenges and completing trees and stuff like that. So again, it was great, but I think we're all ready for that cinematic, involved, heavy lore, heavy theorizing story, such as the next Zelda. But it's a good holdover until then, I will not lie. I think Age of Calamity was a very good answer in between.
Yeah.
I mean, I liked it for the most part. The gameplay was just a bit repetitive for me, and that's just because the whole Hyrule Warriors Dynasty Warriors thing, that kind of wanes on me after a bit. And originally, when I saw the trailer, I thought, oh, this is gonna be amazing. This is gonna be very sad and depressing, and like it will emotionally tear my heart to shreds, which is exactly what I want. That's why Majora's Mask is bae. But then I kind of found out that it was kind of like, I don't know, I would call it, without spoiling anything like super necessarily or heavy, I would say like, it's a bit of a Marvel twist at the end, and personally, that kind of ruined it for me, because I need a bit of a story and a drive in order to do things, unless the gameplay is like really good. But if the gameplay is slightly lacking, I need like story and drive and everything to continue with this. I need a reason to care, and I kind of lost that a bit after I found out how the story went. Like, from a gameplay perspective and, like, the characters and everything around it, that was pretty good. But the story was a bit disappointing. And I think the DLC made, like, the all-round slightly better. And especially the new characters they added, like the Guardian and some new weapons and stuff. That was cool. I like that. That was fun. The Guardian especially was, like, hilarious.
I was not expecting a Guardian of all things. And I'm like...
I know, right? It's crazy.
That
gigantic
the battle-tested Guardian. Honestly, it was like one of the best offerings in that. When it came to the Age of Calamity DLC and how I felt about the entire package and stuff, I was always looking at it like Age of Calamity. I'm like, okay, that's cool that we're gonna get a story about 100 years before Breath of the Wild, which is still technically true. But when I saw that it's a Hyrule Warriors game, I'm like,
it's a Warriors.
Okay, I'm prepared for it not to matter, but let's see. And then, the twist happened. I still like the game for what it is, like inside and outside as a package deal in terms of the DLC and the base game, and it also gave me a lot to look forward to when it came to Breath of the Wild 2 for a very specific reason, and that is how they handled the cutscenes, how they handled the graphics, how they handled or I'm not talking about like FPS and performance, I'm talking about graphics, story, voice acting, music. I felt those are all huge improvements from what we saw in Breath of the Wild, right? They got the voice act, the voice direction was much better. The music was a lot more dynamic, but it still had the Breath of the Wild feel. The graphics, if you compare them, like it's a tinge better since it was, made specifically for the Switch and not ported over from the Wii U. So it gave me like a really good feeling. I'm like, oh, that improvement in terms of those quality control aspects in Age of Calamity, I feel will carry over and possibly be even more improved on with Breath of the Wild 2. And that was like a really good feeling. And I love warrior games like in general. So I had a really good time with the game. And I, like Miss Click said, I love completing skill trees. I love getting everything 100% in the game. I'm actually like one mission away from completely 100% in the game on very hard. So I'm like, I should definitely get on that. And like, case in point, when the DLC was over, like the only gripe I had was, okay, I can't really say because it's a spoiler, but I will say this, that after finishing Age of Calamity, I really don't know which is my favorite Warriors game, and that's in between Age of Calamity and Persona 5 Strikers. And I'm like, geez, man, that's really good. Maybe, Three Hopes will like get in there a little bit, but we'll have to wait.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
It's looking good. Yeah.
Like my take on Age of Calamity was that it was kind of the holdover title until Breath of the Wild 2 is out. We got a sense of the quality improvements that have been made in between, mostly when it comes to voice direction, because we all know the voice acting in Breath of the Wild could be a little bit hit and miss. And every voice actor I've heard from complained that it had to do with voice direction. They didn't know what kind of emotions they were supposed to convey, or what kind of tone and inflections they were supposed to do, and that had an impact on how the different story cutscenes came out. And I also think another thing Age of Calamity really benefited from was the fact that the story was told continuously. It was not fragmented as in Breath of the Wild, which made for very enjoyable, at least until, the plot twist came in, and you kind of got different experiences depending on how you prefer this game to end. And that's how I'm going to say it. Gameplay-wise, a Warriors game, but very closer to the Zelda side, I would say, than Hyrule Warriors was. And I think that was very positive. There was a lot of aspects brought over from Breath of the Wild into Age of Calamity, and that's why I really enjoy the game from a gameplay perspective. And the DLC, maybe the first DLC pack wasn't that eventful, but the second one I think really added to it, and also gave a few emotional moments there, which explained what was the fate of certain characters, and I felt like that was appreciated. But yeah, there were a few cop-outs in Age of Calamity, which I feel like a story like Breath of the Wild could have benefited from some more long-lasting consequences. I'm not going to go beyond that.
Also, I see we have a new guest in here. Hello, Monster. Can you talk? Say hello.
Hello. Good day.
Hello.
Sorry for being late.
You're good. We're good. We're just.
Don't worry.
We're just talking about Age of Calamity. If you want to say anything on that before we move on.
About Age of Calamity.
Yeah.
Yeah, specifically the DLC that came out last year.
But opinions in general on it.
To be honest, I didn't play the DLC, except the first one. I did play the first one, but the second one I did not. I kind of lost interest in the game, to be honest, at some point.
That's fair.
Warriors games are usually... I played the first 4 Dynasty Warriors games, but they're not exactly the type of games that hold my interest for a very long time, so...
It is niche.
Same.
Yeah.
I think...
If it...
Oh,
sorry.
Go ahead. No, you're good. You're good.
If it wasn't Zelda themed, I probably wouldn't even play it, to be completely honest.
Right.
That's fair.
So yeah, that's about it.
That is fair. With that, how about we just move on to our next release in 2021, which was Skyward Sword HD, which honestly, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed playing the HD version. It was so much fun. I did play the game when it came out in 2011, but I stopped right in the middle of the first dungeon. I was just like done with it because I know.
No, Alex. We are not. You cannot. I'm about to open the can of worms, but I'll be like conversation. Or you cannot come and talk to me about Super Mario Sunshine when you gave up in the first dungeon of Skyward Sword. Conversation over.
Well, it was the stupid spiders. I was trying to stab it with the Wii emote, and it wouldn't work. I just quit playing it. I still have my Wii copy. I just stopped playing it.
To be fair, I think I struggled more with the spiders in this version than I did in the Wii version.
Oh, really?
And mainly because the calibration was so different with the Wii versus with the Switch. I feel like I had more issues with the Switch than I did the Wii, which is very funny. But like, I have to say, like, Skyward Sword, they brought everything over that people were requesting. Skipping certain dialogues for certain items, being able to skip cutscenes, the button controls being the biggest thing. Aonuma-san basically said no for years. Like, no, not gonna happen.
No.
That's not what the game's about. It's gonna be difficult. And granted, people still do complain about the button controls, but it's like, what did you really expect when you have a whole interface that's created just for motion? How are you gonna translate that fully to button, and people are like, oh, let us customize controls and blah blah blah. I think that's a whole other can of worms to open up that shouldn't even be done. But I think it was so cool this past year seeing people be like, oh my gosh, this is one of my top.
The game is good, right? Like, oh,
beautiful.
Yeah.
And
I was so
many
vindicated.
So many people fall in love with it. Even some of the events that Nintendo hosted, we had some of the content creators come out and they're like, this is my first time playing it, and now I'm getting to talk about it. So I feel bad like talking to it with people who have loved it for like 10 plus years at this point, but seeing them fall in love with it was a really beautiful experience, because people who have loved Skyward Sword after all these years, you know, it's like, just give it a chance, like just try it. Like the amount of like people like trying to throw stones at us after all these years, it was a really sweet homecoming.
Can I say something? You were actually one of the reasons why I decided to give the game another chance. Yeah,
nice.
I saw you on Twitter talking about it so many times. I was like, there has to be a reason why people love this game so much, because I hated it. I really didn't like it in the beginning.
Same.
Well, what's your opinion now?
Oh, I absolutely loved it. I finally get it. Like, at the time I was just not ready for a game like this. I guess I was ready for a Breath of the Wild type of game, and now that we've experienced something like Breath of the Wild, I kind of miss the story aspect of Zelda a lot. And I guess for Skyward Sword HD, everything just came together for me. It was like so amazing. This story, this is what Breath of the Wild needed to some extent.
It's almost like full circle, because I remember when Skyward Sword came out, that's the same year as Skyrim, and people were mad because Skyrim was open world and Skyward Sword was not. So I remember like the big talk, you know, of Game of the Year, people are like, oh, it's like a kiddie Zelda game, it's never gonna be open world, blah blah blah. And then when Zelda finally became open world, it's like, I miss the fanfares, I miss the dungeons, I miss, you know, like the heavier story. And it's like, everything that you're asking for, Skyward Sword had, but you said it was too childlike, or you said it was too handholdy, or blah blah blah. And sure, there are like repeating, you know, like revisits and stuff, and I'm not gonna come against anybody who has a quarrel with that. But it's really cool, like you said, it kind of comes full circle, and people are like, I got the Breath of the Wild open world experience, and now I got the story experience. That makes me so happy to hear. Oh my gosh.
Man,
So-
like one of my favorite things about Skyward Sword is just like, it really tears like a really nice page out of Metroid, and like Zelda runs with it really nicely in Skyward Sword. And like back in 2011, I loved this game. Like up until Breath of the Wild, Skyward Sword was legit my second favorite Zelda game, like right behind Ocarina of Time. Now it's number 3 because Breath of the Wild and Ocarina of Time are constantly fighting for dominance in my heart. But this game just seemed like just that feeling of vindication years after, like literally 10 years after the game's release, and people are like saying, Skyward Sword is bad, Skyward Sword is bad. I'm like, did you play it? Did you beat it though? Like, did you? Like, I can't. And now that people are saying, yo, Skyward Sword is so good, and then Skyward Sword HD sold more than its original Wii run on the Switch, and I'm like, yes! Bro, like, I love the feeling that people are loving it.
All right, I know we are hyping up Skyward Sword here a lot. And
here we go.
I like to be the voice of reason here.
Reason, he says.
This game is very much a technical marvel. 1080p, 60 FPS on the Switch. That is an accomplishment that almost never happens on the system, especially after what we saw with Age of Calamity and frame rate, what we saw with Breath of the Wild as well. The fact that they managed to do 1080p 60 with Skyward Sword HD, applaud to Nintendo. My main problem with Skyward Sword has always been the linearity, some of the filler sections that comes later on in the game, and the many obstacles you go through. There isn't that much exploration within the game. And Zelda games, to strike a perfect balance in my eyes, need a good story, need proper dungeons, amazing bosses with good variety that are not being recycled over and over again, and a lot of exploration. If you can combine all of that, then you have the perfect Zelda game, in my opinion. Skyward Sword hits a lot of that, but when it doesn't work, it works so against what Zelda is as a video game franchise, which it is about freedom. Zelda 1 was about freedom. Ocarina of Time offered you also quite a lot of freedom if you decided to go for it. In Skyward Sword, you're forced on a one linear story path, and I can understand that story path makes up for one of the best game stories in the entire Zelda series. Personally, I think Majora's Mask has a better story than Skyward Sword overall, with all the combined stories of Termina and even the Wind Waker. But I understand the appeal of Skyward Sword, and I will definitely say that it's a far more appealing title on the Switch than it was on the Wii, both from a control option perspective, when it comes from a technical perspective, and when it comes to, what could I say, kind of removing the limitations of the game as well. So you can get straight into gameplay instead of sitting through cutscenes, dialogue text boxes, and so on. Because what you want in Zelda is action. Story is important, but not as important as gameplay, and that's why Skyward Sword ranks a little bit lower on the list for me compared to some other 3D Zelda games.
And see, if this is where we were getting in the lore, I'd tell you why Skyward Sword was limited on exploration, but we won't go there.
All right.
Well,
Now it's my turn. Time for the roast of the century. Let me
Here we
just
go.
flex
Here we
muscles
go.
a bit to get ready. Personally, I'm not a big fan of Skyward Sword. The sky sections were empty and dull. It was incredibly linear. There wasn't a lot of exploration. Dungeons were well designed, but bosses were reused. There are a lot of like kinks in it. You know, it's certainly still. I will say it's made by Nintendo. You can't really go wrong with that unless you're gonna go with like weird Mario sports games. Those can be like horrendous. But if it's just a Zelda title, you know, then it's an automatic 7 out of 10 basically. But in my opinion, compared to a lot of other Zelda games, like Conrad kind of mentioned, like Commonwealth Realm mentioned, I mean, like Majora's Mask has, for example, a better story because it has better world building, all-round world building, and the main story itself is better built, like it's better constructed. And in the Wind Waker you see that as well. Sure, they made a lot of improvements in Skyward Sword HD. I will say though, 1080p 60 FPS running that on Nintendo Switch, is that impressive? No, not really. If you look at the hardware, it should easily be able to do that. It's not that hard. It's a 2011 game for the Wii. You know, I mean, a Nintendo Switch is already more powerful than a PlayStation 3, you know, and the Wii was significantly less powerful than a PlayStation 3, you know, so it's not really that mind-blowing that it can do 1080p 60 FPS.
I have a question. Did
yeah,
you come at Skyward Sword for recycling content when literally the entirety of Majora's Mask is just recycled Ocarina of Time?
That's literally one of my points, but yes, and in my opinion, Majora's Mask does it better.
It's the entire world, all of the characters.
Yeah, cool. Are we gonna crucify Breath of the Wild 2 because it
It was
reuses
developed
assets?
in a year. It was developed in a year.
Almost all Zelda games
Yeah,
reuse assets.
And
All
then
Zelda games.
the worst point about Skyward Sword HD, in my opinion, this is the biggest problem I have with it. I certainly don't hate it if people buy it or whatever, or I would say that it's a terrible game. They made certain improvements, and I like that a lot, and they did a good job overall. But is it a $60 job? No. I find the $60 price tag ridiculous. I know it's like, yeah, but Nintendo is always that expensive. Yeah, but the industry moves on. I can buy 10 different games on Steam for that money that are as good or even better.
Yeah, but if
Or
you're gonna
let's say
get
5.
if you're
let's say
gonna get
5.
into price, if you're gonna get into price and how much money you should spend, then you might as well, you know, that's only the tip of the iceberg. There's people spending $2,000 per year on gacha games.
Yeah, but it's
where-
part of the
whereas-
discussion, isn't it?
Yeah, of
You need to
course.
keep
but,
that
like,
in mind.
Money is
Okay,
like
Okay.
obviously. Let's just say that in terms of Skyward Sword, yeah, I guess you could say it's overpriced. But you know, you don't have to buy it. First of all, it's not really mandatory to have, especially if you. I think the most people were looking for another chance to give this game like a new, you know, give it a shot. Like me, I actually did buy it on the Wii back then. I sold it immediately after
Jeez.
because yeah, let's just say I wasn't in a good spot back then when it
Sure.
like in general it was
Trade that
not
into
tied.
GameStop for $2.
Oh yeah, something like that. It was horrible. But yeah, that was just my own mental state when it came to gaming. I was kind of getting tired of it. And but let me just sketch a quick overview of why I hated Skyward Sword back then and I love it now. Is that back then I like Misclick said, Skyrim, stuff like that. I was so getting used to those kinds of games, which of course now we're getting bombarded with open world games. They're coming out one after another, each one more impressive. I'm just playing Elden Ring right now. It's amazing how far the genre has come since then. But there was a time when it was new, and the amount of freedom had a lot of growth in it. And Skyward Sword back then just felt like a step back for me. Suddenly, I wasn't able to even fly at night. Like I couldn't wait to explore the night in this, explore the sky at night. And I jumped off, and they're like, no, you cannot do that. Okay, I guess I cannot do that. I went to the surface. All of a sudden, wait, where's the day and night cycle? Why is it never turning into night? I always love exploring at night. Like there were so many restrictions that I wasn't used to with Zelda, and I guess I was kind of hoping that it would move on from Twilight Princess to a full open world game. And now that we had that full open world experience with Breath of the Wild and seeing what kind of trade-offs you get from having an open world game, I suddenly realized with Skyward Sword, you know, this game is really freaking good. It has so many things that Breath of the Wild doesn't, and vice versa. So they complement each other really well. And even now, I will say, I'm like about 40 hours into Elden Ring. Even Elden Ring has its limitations of things you cannot do. The way stories were told compared to the previous Souls games, you always have a trade-off when you switch to open world. Suddenly you're able to go anywhere, but they also have to still have to try to get a story in there somehow without breaking it, so to speak.
Yeah, but it doesn't necessarily have to be an open world. We don't have to compare Skyward... Like, when I look at Skyward Sword and I criticize Skyward Sword and I don't compare it to, like, oh, it's not Skyrim. That's not really my point. I think a better comparison is comparing it to Twilight Princess, and I think that Twilight Princess is better well-rounded in that regard and has a better story. So...
Well, yeah.
It's also less original.
Yeah.
Well,
very less original.
Yeah, every Zelda has a new element about it, though. So when people are like, do you think Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be as good as Breath of the Wild 1? I tell them it's going to be different. And whether you think that's better or that's not, that's up to you. What mechanics of Breath of the Wild did you like better than the sequel? I mean, we're gonna have new catches in every Zelda game, you know, such as even Ocarina, though it does have all the recycled to make Majora's Mask. You have the 3-day cycle, you have the masks, you have all of these new elements brought in, and some people don't like the 3-day cycle. Me, as a kid, I know what anxiety was, but now I know as an adult it gave me anxiety.
Oh, amazing!
Just with Skyward Sword, they're like, this is gonna be our mechanic. It's gonna be motion control, and it's gonna be heavy story. And we're gonna force feed you that. And if you don't like it, that's okay. Like, that is completely not for you. That's not your niche. And for me, I loved story games growing up. Huge fan. And I loved the fact that it was something more guided. And with Breath of the Wild, they're like, we're gonna give you more just at your own expense. And I have friends who didn't even do the Divine Beasts before they went to Ganon. And I'm like, they didn't play it wrong.
True.
They did.
There's no way to play Breath of the Wild, really, when you think about it.
No, it's an open world game.
So it's a caveat for each one, and it's like people are always, it's almost like apples to oranges in a way,
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like Skyward Sword is different in ways, and it has certain things that make it better than other games. I'm not gonna say that Skyward Sword is completely horrendous and there's nothing amazing about it. For example, upgrading items was, in my opinion, very nice. I like that. I'm a sucker for shit like that. I don't know why. But there were just too many things that I was like, a bit disappointing. Could have been better. But it also improved on other things. And yeah, it isn't my thing, and that is fine. That is fine. I'm also not a big fan of Phantom Hourglass. It's also not my
Same.
cup of tea, you know. But
Same.
other people that I know absolutely love it. Same goes for Spirit Tracks. Also not really, you know, the DS games just didn't really hit for me. But other people do like it, and that's fine. It's just we're all sharing our opinions here. It's,
Sure.
at the end of the day, we're just
Yeah, no.
idiots with opinions, you know.
So a lot of people keep forgetting this fact when it comes to like Skyward Sword's identity and how it got to that point. And like I feel like whenever Twilight Princess, because like when Wiley said that, like whenever Twilight Princess is brought up, I'm like, you can't really hold Twilight Princess against Skyward Sword, because the whole reason why Skyward Sword even exists is because people complained about Twilight Princess being too formulaic in the Zelda formula. So then IGR and Numo's are like, okay, let's shake it up. And then Miyamoto's, hey, yo, check this out, Wii Motion Plus from Wii Sports Resort. And then they're like, yo, this sword fighting thing is actually pretty cool. Let's build an entire game around that. And that's how Skyward Sword came to be, right? They built the world around it. They built the story around it. They built every concept you see in Skyward Sword was built around the one-to-one motion control sword fighting, right? So of course, like if you have a game like that, you know, an open world game is not going to really work when your combat options is really focused like that. There's no way you're going to be able to build a massive open world around that. So the world itself had to be linear in order to accommodate that gameplay style. And that was all started from people looking at Twilight Princess and like, yo, this game's good, but it's the same thing as, you know, Ocarina of Time. I've seen this before, you know, like shake it up.
Twilight Princess.
You know,
Crazy. Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's
my
a
main
good point, but
Yeah.
I had to compare it with something, you know.
right.
Sure.
okay,
Literally, what
so
came
I-
before it, the 3D
I
Zelda
think
before
we
that.
start to move on, but I want to just point out my main flaw with Skyward Sword, and that is that in Zelda you're always able to move seamlessly between one area to another, whether it's top down or even like Ocarina of Time. You move through corridors and you move from one province to another. You can't do that in Skyward Sword. You have to constantly go up to the sky, move through the sky, and then go down. You can't move between provinces on the surface. And the fact that everything felt like levels in Skyward Sword, with linear corridors and like it felt very much like a Metroid Prime experience, Skyward Sword. And I
Right.
know the motion controls required that, but for me as a purist Zelda fan, I like to explore and be able to chart my way from one area to another by just moving across the land itself. And I think most people can agree about that when it comes to Zelda, that it's all about discovering all these different cultures, traditions. And I think a lot of people also missed having more people on the surface, because you were
Well, when the
constantly
entire
encountering.
land dies,
Exactly.
You, know,
You
it's
were
been
fighting
completely
monsters the
destroyed.
entire time. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Yeah, I
right.
think it's also because Zelda started, quote unquote, as an open world game. So that's like the basis. But if this was anything else, then Skyward Sword would have been much more respected. Like, take for example Castlevania, which did the opposite. Started very, very linear, and then they started to do all this Metroidvania stuff, and the 3D games go even further from that formula to a point where it doesn't even feel like a Castlevania game anymore. And I think that's mostly the big problem with Zelda. It changes so much. Every game does something completely different, and the ones that don't really stand out. Like we were talking about Twilight Princess. Even though I love the game to death, I don't respect that game as much as, for instance, Majora's Mask or Ocarina of Time, or
I agree.
you know, because they try, especially Majora's Mask, they could have made the ultimate sequel. Just play it safe, do the same thing all over again. We're gonna make a sequel to Ocarina of Time. It's gonna be Ocarina of Time 2, same deal. Instead, they go for this weird experimental stuff, and it worked, and it ended up working. And I respect that game for it so much. And Skyward Sword too. They tried something new.
Hit or miss.
Yeah, well, I mean, I respect that Nintendo keeps trying new stuff, and I will admit, like, when it comes to Nintendo with trying new things, sometimes they really have a stroke of genius, and they create, like, a Majora's Mask, a game that couldn't really be created under any other circumstances, and there's nothing like it out there in the world, and it's very unique in that regard. But sometimes they also make things that are a bit of a miss, you know? Like the Wii U, for example. They also thought, oh, this is a great idea, but in the end, no, it's not that nice that you have 2 screens. You can't really, you know, like, that didn't really work in the end. It was not the best idea they've ever had. So it's with Nintendo, it's a bit of a hit and miss. But the great thing about the fact that they keep innovating is that sometimes they really create the most insane stuff out there, really change the industry or change the standard. Even Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey, for example, both changed the standards for their genres. Like, open world was significantly improved by Breath of the Wild. There were certain things that Ubisoft and other companies were still messing around with, and they didn't understand, how are we gonna do, like, checkpoints and towers and blah blah blah. And Breath of the Wild came around the corner and said, this is how you do it. You know, so that's the nice thing about Nintendo. Sometimes it doesn't really produce the best stuff, but sometimes it literally changes the industry or the genre. So,
Sure.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Like, it definitely was a game changer for sure. But anyway, with that in mind, though, guys, because we are a little running a bit low on time, we are going to move on to our next topic, which is going to be Zelda in 2022. Which the big question is, what do we expect of Zelda the series this year, and what are some of our hopes that we want to, like, you know, see
the title of Breath of the Wild 2.
At least.
That would be nice. That would be nice.
I just want, like, oh no, go ahead, sorry.
No, at least like a confirmation like when the game's coming out.
Here's hoping that E3 will actually, like, happen this year, because, like, even though they claim that E3 is going to be all digital, there's a bunch of insiders and analysts saying that it could be shaky. I want Nintendo to really, really, like, blow the lid off Breath of the Wild 2 at E3 this year. I want the title, I want release window, I want trailer, I want key art, I want posters, I want all that stuff.
Man, give it all
Yeah.
Gameplay, and once again,
More
gameplay.
But then, like, I feel that Breath of the Wild 2 might be a huge focus at E3 this year, but at the same time, we got that, you know, a weirdly ominous new banner by Retro Studios not too long ago. And maybe, just maybe, I don't know if it's going to be, like, either a shared focus or, like, that's what I'm scared as a Zelda fan, but I'm excited as a Metroid fan to see, like, oh, is Metroid Prime 4 going to be the focus of E3 this year? Or is Breath of the Wild 2 going to be the focus, or are they going to share the focus? I'm all for them, like, those two gargantuan games, like, being the focus of E3 is like, yo, this is Zelda and this is Metroid. Let's go.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
But
I think both.
Yeah,
There's
like,
a good chance
yeah.
of that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think we see some Zelda stuff kind of in the middle. We see that if there was gonna, you know, if there's gonna be Treehouse, it's gonna be a lot of Zelda stuff. But then we end it off, you know, with something bigger, because we already know about Zelda. Unless they're gonna do a huge title reveal, I don't think necessarily closing out with Zelda is something they have to do. So I mean, we did get that banner, but again, Metroid fans, we can get a freaking JPEG and then be like, oh my god, for literally
which
like
we did.
Oh yeah, I'm still sick.
just show me Silence's gun and I'm fine for the year.
It's kind of bad that the bar is so low for Metroid, though. Like, in order to get hyped, you know, that's kind of sad. On the other hand,
Yeah.
Oh,
Prime,
I pity.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Just
I think
having
for me,
recognition is
I think it's safe to say that probably Metroid is not gonna come out before Breath of the Wild 2. So
Oh, yeah.
Imagine if it does,
and we-
though.
and we all know that Nintendo focuses on the games that are closer to release, you know, like they're doing right now.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure even if we see Metroid this E3, it's probably going to be a very short trailer, like just to
JPEG.
show, like, hey guys, we're back. It's, you know, it's finally done. We're working on it again. Here's some stuff for you to see. But if they are keeping their promise and Breath of the Wild 2 is indeed going to be a 2022 title, I mean, they pretty much have to. I just don't see them blowing the lid off later than E3, because you have to start marketing this game at some point, you know? We have to get more info to get hype about it.
do you think they could top the 2017 trailer? Do you think it's possible?
Yes.
What it,
Yes.
I
Yes.
think
Yeah,
so.
yeah,
I
totally.
think so.
What if
Totally.
they did another one?
Yeah.
Yeah,
What-
you would say experience would say that they know now how to do proper trailers.
Well,
Bro,
I mean,
that trailer was amazing.
It was
man.
a masterpiece.
And
To be honest,
because it was close to release, it looked really, really good. Because, you know, let's be fair, the first trailer for Twilight Princess was really freaking good too. But like half,
I was screaming. Well, I was a kid. I was like,
yeah, that was amazing. But like half of what we saw didn't even make it into the game. So
yeah, no. We're not having this conversation because I can talk for hours about the first trailer. It made. Why'd you gotta make me sad? It's fine. It's fine.
Childhood trauma coming up.
Yeah.
It's nice to reminisce and speculate, but I like to stick to facts. And the fact is that we've had recently a proper update from Nintendo when it comes to the release schedule and what they're planning to do for 2022. And there, interestingly, Breath of the Wild 2 is now ahead of both Bayonetta 3 and Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, which means that those two are less likely to come out in 2022, while I think Breath of the Wild now, with those being uncertain for 2022, they really need Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 in the second half. Yes, they have Xenoblade Chronicles 3 in September, but I think they really want to end off the year with Zelda. And there's a number of reasons I believe this is the case. Because delaying Zelda even further than 5 years after the previous one means also delaying the next Zelda game another year, because development time is not going to be shorter. Definitely not if you need to create a new open world, a new setting probably, new links, new stories, scenarios, and everything. The next open world Zelda after this game is not going to be until 2028. And I think we need to just be ready for that right now. Yes, it hurts to think about it, but it's going to take a long time until we get Zelda again after Breath of the Wild 2.
Expect more remakes and remasters in the meantime. I'm
Bro.
okay with it.
Or 2D Zelda.
Okay.
Your
I'm okay.
2028 comment really was like a bullet to the heart, man. Like I'm already waiting for Breath of the Wild 2, patiently sitting in my room. Oh, it's gonna come soon. And then that comes around the corner, and then you have like the depression era. You finish the game, and then you're like, I have to wait another 5 years.
6 years probably.
I have to be completely
Six
honest,
probably.
because before we had the direct this last month, I thought like Zelda was a very much a shoo-in for this year. But then when they announced Xenoblade Chronicles for September of 2022, and I'm like, how am I gonna have time to play all of these great games coming out? And I'm like, oof, I was not expecting it to come out that soon, and I'm like,
It is not.
I think that we'll be able to fit in Breath of the Wild 2 though, because as far as I've noticed, and I also keep an eye on all the investors' notes and all the investor stuff they release, Nintendo, for people who buy their stock and all that garbage.
yeah.
And their current strategy is that they need a couple of bangers every year, and that are spaced out. Because from the Wii U, they learned that when you release a console, you shouldn't just grab the gun, unload the entire magazine, and then you're out of bullets. You don't have anything left for the other 4 years that the console has to go through. So they kind of space it out. So I do expect Nintendo to have one more ace up the sleeve, and I think it's Breath of the Wild 2 for Christmas.
That'd be great.
They need to have some sort of Christmas banger, because that's really what investors really they've told investors that they have this kind of plan. They want a big banger for the summer. They want something a little bit in the beginning in order to get stuff rolling. They're big bangers in the summer, and then building up towards Christmas and Sinterklaas, which is a Dutch version of Christmas and stuff. They also want stuff, so then at the end of the year, September and stuff, they also want to release a couple of games, 2 or 3 big titles, so they can also sell that during Christmas and other holidays that you have, like Hanukkah or whatever, you have a million nowadays. So I think we're still going to get Breath of the Wild 2, and I think they're going to aim for Christmas. And I think it's not going to be as big as the previous one, in terms of how much hype the trailer is going to generate. And that's mostly because in 2017, you got to remember, the Nintendo Switch hit the scene and changed the entire gaming industry, because all of a sudden there was a handheld and portable console, which was a completely new concept, and they sold 100 million of them.
And,
so it's not really...
They had to reconvince the people hey, listen, this console's good after the Wii U, so they really had to pull out all the stops with the Switch. So I definitely get that. So
no, but I definitely think there's a bigger player base even than the initial first Switch buyers.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Obviously, in the pandemic, we saw even more Switches sold than ever. The amount of people, especially nowadays, with content creation and live streaming, you have more people who Breath of the Wild was their first Zelda. And
Yeah.
they weren't necessarily hyped to buy it at launch. There are a lot of people who played it after the fact, months, years. I know some people are playing it for the first time this week. And it's all because they're hyping up to this next one. So part of me was like, I think Nintendo was hoping that Breath of the Wild was going to do well, but I don't think they were expecting it to do this well. Especially in comparison to games such as Animal Crossing, whether people want to acknowledge it or not. Animal Crossing sold a ton of Switches and therefore sold a ton of other Switch games. And then you have all this third party and all this indie support. You have people really driving to this console is like your little like pet. It's like your little baby. You can take it anywhere with you. So I really do think, if anything, like a lot of people are going to be really hyped for the second one because it's going to be their second new Zelda. Because Breath of the Wild was their first one. So I think a lot of people are going to be really hyped to be part of their first Zelda launch as a new Zelda fan.
Right. And I feel like Nintendo's going to rely a lot on that word of mouth rather than, do this big promotional thing they did with Zelda Wii U, which became Breath of the Wild. So I definitely understand this perspective. I just feel that Nintendo needs to do not more, but not as much as they did with Breath of the Wild, the original one, because like every time you create a sequel, I forgot who said this. Every time you create a sequel, you're always trying to sell to the people that didn't buy the first, right? That's the whole point in order to maximize your sales, because you know that whoever bought the first is going to buy the sequel already, right? So Nintendo has to do something in order to like get all those people who haven't played Breath of the Wild one, who doesn't know what Zelda is, to get hyped for Breath of the Wild 2. It's like, hey, listen, there's this second game to this big, awesome game that you haven't played yet, so you should definitely play that one now, and to play this one when it comes out in Christmas or holiday season or whatever. So like, it's going to be really interesting to see how they handle their marketing strategy when it comes to finally lifting the curtain on this title. But I feel like it's going to be a very different strategy from what we saw with the original.
Like, I think Breath of the Wild 2 is still going to sell incredibly well, don't get me wrong.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like it's not like my point was that it's not going to sell well. I think it's just not going to be like 2000, like now that I look back on it, and I've been reminiscing a lot on 2017 and 18 because I'm kind of nostalgic about it in a way, because that's also when like kind of my channel started, and that's for a lot of people here as well. Like especially or when the ball really got rolling, and that's because 2017, I think the best way to sum it up was one sentence, and that's Nintendo is back, baby. And that's why I think Breath of the Wild 2 is going to sell incredibly well, but it's not going to be like a global event that's going to shatter the gaming industry, because it's not like that. Nintendo is back, baby, like they rose up from the grave like Jesus Christ himself, it's not really, that's not really gonna happen, I think, with Breath of the Wild 2 or this year, but it's still gonna be a good year. Obviously, they're gonna sell like buttloads of Breath of the Wild 2 and a couple more Switches, and then we'll probably see 110 million sales, and then I hope they really make a new console, because it's getting a bit weak. Because we're a bit late. Yeah, it's 2022, man. It's a bit late.
Switch
Get
Pro.
it, but yeah, Switch Pro. Come on, I'm getting a Steam Deck, so I want a Switch Pro.
What if you get your next Majora's Mask to your Ocarina of Time, right? Like that's what I'm hyped for. It seems like it's gonna be a little bit darker, but I think it's not even necessarily a coincidence about Skyward Sword being released so soon, because I was telling chat the other day, I was like, if my Breath of the Wild has like a Majora's Mask darker vibe sequel follow-up, but also that Skyward Sword kind of, if they're hand in hand with lore, I'm gonna freaking lose my mind. I'm going to lose it.
Nintendo had the biggest gall to this is how we're gonna reveal Breath of the Wild 2 to you.
Straight out
Dark, dinky cave. I'm like, bro, what's going on? Is that Ganondorf's corpse? What? This is how you're gonna introduce the game. I'm like, okay, I'm strapped in for this ride. Like, the one thing that I saw, the one that I kept saying that was missing from Breath of the Wild was Ganondorf. And then you're gonna introduce Breath of the Wild 2 with his corpse. I'm like, all right, Nintendo, we're doing this. All right, yo, strap on and let's go. I'm ready. Let's do this.
Yeah. I'm super excited for the fact that it's gonna get darker, because I'm a sucker for dark games. I don't know, it's maybe a weird, messed up thing in my mind that I like depressing stuff, but the stories, like if a game is a bit depressing or a bit dark or a bit sad, I can really get into it more and really feel those emotions as well. and get like the dread or like the depression, the sadness, the conflicting emotions or thoughts that the characters have. So I really hope it's gonna get darker and a bit more Skyward Sword in the sense of more linear and more story focused, because that could really help a game like Breath of the Wild, because it would improve dungeons and overall story narrative and world building, you know?
Well, that's why I also think it's not going to sell nearly as well as Breath of the Wild. Not to be pessimistic about it, but sequels just usually don't sell as well. I mean,
you never know.
Just look at Majora's Mask. Only sold about half of what Ocarina of Time did. The biggest game of its era. Yeah. You would expect everybody to want to buy the next one or like the follow-up to it. Didn't happen, and you might say, well, maybe that was just the time frame or whatever. No, it happened. The exact same thing happened on the 3DS again with the remakes. Ocarina of Time 3D rather sold twice as much as Majora's Mask. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm just not expecting that big of a blowout as we got with Breath of the Wild, and I think that's also, like Time has said. I think it's also the circumstances, the Switch, the hype, and that's okay. By the way, I don't need it to sell as well.
In now, boy, it's like the Metroid Dread. Is it gonna break 3 mil?
If there was a betting site for this stuff, I would be in.
The way I see this happening is really that we can't forget about one thing, and that is that Breath of the Wild was kind of this brand new experience that we've never experienced before on a Nintendo system ever. And I think a lot of people just bought it for the hype. But I'm not sure if every one of those people are going to buy the sequel, because a lot of people maybe got lost into this game, never got into the Divine Beast, as multiple also mentioned during this discussion. They just ended up with Ganon, or some people just felt like this wasn't for them. They just went. It's like with Elden Ring, you know. People think, "Oh, cool, open world. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna play this," and then you get completely slaughtered within the first hour. And that is kind of how Breath of the Wild is. It's a very brutal experience within the first hour or two, or maybe even 5 hours, I would say. And for a lot of people, that was just like, "Nah, this is not for me." And I'm sitting with this feeling that the game is gonna do well. It might even reach close to 20 million, which it would be crazy for a sequel, especially a Zelda sequel. I just think that one thing is we don't have enough time of the Switch. That is one thing. And the other thing is that I don't think the hype will be on the same level as when you had the support of the new system. And the only game to play on the system on launch day was Breath of the Wild. Because everyone who was buying into it was buying it for Breath of the Wild.
Switch.
Exactly. Well, yeah. Well, let's face it. That should have been included with the system for free.
Oh yeah. That game was really fun though.
But yeah.
And finally, I just want to say that Breath of the Wild kind of became the system seller on the Switch, beginning from day one, together with Mario Kart shortly after, and it's remained like that ever since.
For sure.
You know, but my deal is that I like definitely the whole idea of sequels not doing as well, video game wise, as its predecessor. I feel that Breath of the Wild 2 is positioned in such a weirdly, like, an oddly good position to rival, if not, do better than Breath of the Wild 2. And the reason why is because the install base at this point for the Switch is just immense, and Nintendo can do so much more strategies besides the fact of, just having like promotional on E3 trailers and stuff like that. Like every time you boot up your Switch, and every time the 100 million people that have a Switch boot up their Switch, you have that little sidebar before you even turn on the game, and that sidebar could just be Breath of the Wild 2. Hey, remember that one game, Breath of the Wild? The sequel's out. Bam, bam, bam. And then we have Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. You guys already know that even though Sakurai says this, or Nintendo says that, they're gonna have a Breath of the Wild 2 Spirit event, right? They literally added Dark Ryu from Street Fighter for the Street Fighter anniversary after the fact, when the DLC was done. They're gonna have something like that for Smash Bros. So everyone who's playing Smash Bros. Is gonna have an integration there. They're probably more likely gonna have an Animal Crossing New Horizons collaboration integration in there. So like all these massive connected and splintered install and fan bases throughout the Switch's, catalog of games are gonna do something to promote that of Breath of the Wild 2, even Breath of the Wild, the original itself. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo actually added like, hey, a free costume that you can actually, if you have save data of Breath of the Wild 2, you can use this costume in Breath of the Wild 1, or vice versa, you know? So I feel Breath of the Wild 2 is in a very good and comfortable position to do really well, almost as well as its predecessor. And then, of course, not counting the fact of the internet, the information superhighway, all of us here and everyone else is going to make content of Breath of the Wild 2. And people turn to us now more than, gaming news outlets when it comes to like our takes and, coverage of games like this. So, when one video of Breath of the Wild 2 that's going to be done by the super big, Markiplier might end up playing this game for like 2 seconds or whatever. And that video is going to do like 10 million views just by itself. And that's going to probably translate to, if you want to be generous, 500,000 sales on its own. Not 500,000 sales, just 500,000 people willing to get the game. Or I would say 250,000, or even just like 50,000 people that actually, end up buying a game from 1 million or 10 million views or whatever. I just feel that Breath of the Wild 2, despite, it not being a system seller, it not getting the support of the game releasing with a new system, is going to do well because of all these, factors that Nintendo's like dripping out of their hands. Like, bro, you see all this? We can do this for Breath of the Wild 2.
Dripping out of their hands.
Dripping. Like,
well,
all this technology, all these opportunities, all this.
Well,
Masters, look at all this. Breath of the Wild 2 is this.
Even if they sell,
since we're talking about drip,
Yeah.
I have this perfect segue. I want a drip Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 Nintendo Switch OLED model.
Oh, that'd be sick.
Edition.
Right
It's
there,
as simple
man.
as that. Come on,
Whoa.
Nintendo, it's time. It's
Make the
freaking
sheet
time.
green.
2022 is the year.
that would be sick.
That'd be really cool.
Green Joy-Cons, come on.
I will take a Zelda console like that. I still have my Wind Waker gamepad from the Wii U at least, so. I'm
Yes,
happy
me
with
too.
that.
Nice.
You look
I
fantastic.
actually,
Well, let's-
for my birthday gift, someone finally got me the golden Joy-Con.
Yeah. Right there,
You
baby.
never had the Golden Joy-Con, the
Never got
Skyward Sword one?
Wait, Golden Joy-Con?
No,
What?
To go with the
You mean
Wiimote,
Wiimote?
Oh, the
never got
Joy-Con.
the-
Oh, I know what you're talking about, yeah.
I'm sorry, nunchuck.
You mean the?
Yeah, the nunchuck. Yeah,
Yeah,
that one's
yeah,
rare. That one's rare.
I have.
Is the
so-
nunchuck rare?
I have.
Yeah, the nunchuck
Oh,
is
that
rare.
one. Yeah. That one is very
So-
rare.
Oh, really?
Oh.
That one only got
Bro.
that one only got given out during like Club Nintendo. It was like, oh, if you have the Wiimotes,
Points. Yeah.
Nice.
the Wiimote certain amount of points is like, hey, get this golden nunchuck that can, be alongside that for Skyward Sword. And they didn't make a lot, so now it's like it's really rare.
Yeah.
You can't even buy it in
know,
the stores. That's
Like,
the only way to get it.
You have to be rich to get this many points, and I was like a poor child eating a piece of toast. So
Going to Papa John's.
Alright.
You know what I would really want when it comes to like Zelda, rare Zelda collectibles is, it's kind of a fabled myth. I've never even seen like a picture of it really, like unless it's promotional material, It's like they made like a Game Boy SP that is made with like actual
Oh, I know
plated
exactly.
gold.
Yeah,
Like,
I know what you're
real
talking about.
Gold, like
Yeah,
they did it with
the Zelda
gold.
one. Yeah.
And that was during the Minish Cap they made that, and it's
Yeah.
a Zelda
Yeah,
one.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I have
Nothing
no
costs.
idea how many there are. I don't know who has it, but I think it's worth a buttload of money. But I would love to have that, because the biggest flex in life would be having a gold-plated Game Boy SP.
That'd be
bro,
sick.
if people didn't
Not only
crucify
that.
Nintendo over their choices right now, I don't
Not
know
only
what
that, folks. That Game Boy you're talking about is signed by Miyamoto. He signed all of them.
This.
Oh,
Okay.
really? I didn't
Yeah,
know that.
so yes, and all
You know-
of them are signed by Miyamoto.
You know how much they're going for right now?
What?
They're going for 40 grand.
Oh, I could do
No,
that. Yeah,
no.
I could drop
That's
40
why.
grand on that. That's fine.
Whoa.
That's
Oh,
why.
hell yeah. I'm gonna buy that at some point. 40 grand, fine.
Yeah. If I was only.
That's
rich.
the only collectible I want.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, we gotta wrap this up pretty quickly. So, how about we just go around the room and just do a quick wild prediction of Zelda in the future, and just say whatever you think will happen. Any wild prediction about Breath of the Wild 2, Zelda in general, and anything.
I'll let Miss Click go first.
What?
Ladies
Honestly,
first.
Ladies first to me.
Anybody knows me, it's that I don't like to theorize or speculate too much because I love being surprised. That's like kind of my thing is having a hope or an aspiration and then seeing kind of what the artists want to present us, and hopefully they listened to the community along the way, as well as presenting their product to us in a way that makes them happy. Like, you can tell when people are really passionate about their game, and I really think the Zelda team is truly proud of what they have created. So, I mean, I think with Breath of the Wild, whether it is coming out this holiday season, which again, like we said, I think makes the most sense, even if it got delayed, which is a very Zelda thing to have happen, all in all, I just want it to be a smooth, transition. People fall in love with it. It's something that, if it's a new element, that it's memorable and it fits into the rest of the series, like every other game before it, and that we can look back and be like, yo, I remember where I was on that day that game launched. So I'm pretty freaking excited. I've made so many amazing friends along the way, and it's crazy on how many more friends we're probably gonna make with this next game coming out. So,
absolutely.
Yay, friendship!
Yay!
Definitely.
Like, I don't
Okay.
Everybody show hands.
I hate y'all.
Like, I don't want to state the obvious, like, hopes and predictions. Like, people want to see like a remake of the Oracle games. Which I would love that. Or Wind Waker and Twilight Princess eventually come to Switch. Like, those are just like the obvious ones. So I'm gonna say I want a remake of the Minish Cap. That'd be awesome. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, I agree.
Cutie.
Yeah,
Perfect game for remake, yeah.
absolutely.
I just want dungeons and a better story in Breath of the Wild 2. If I get those two,
Yeah.
thank you, Anuma. Thank you.
Thank you, Anuma.
For Breath of the Wild 2, I just need, like, you know what I need? I need more enemy variety. I need more scary enemies. I need Nintendo to, Nintendo, don't be cowards. You guys know about the concept art for Guardians in Breath of the Wild. I need those enemies in Breath of the Wild too. Like, now, bro. I want to be freaked out. I want all the experiences I've had in previous Zelda games that I wasn't able to have in Breath of the Wild. But I mean, a lot of people's like, oh, that's such a broad aspect. It's like, no, I want dungeons. I want scary enemies. I want to see how those, very beloved tropes in past Zelda games are adapted for Breath of the Wild. I want to see how they do their take in Breath of the Wild. So, bring back Iron Knuckles, bring back Dark Nuts, bring back, actual Stalfos. I refuse to call those stall enemies that we saw in Breath of the Wild. I refuse to call them Stalfos because they're not. They're like, oh, but stall bokoblins, stall moblins. Like, no, I need Stalfos. I need those, right? And then in that aspect, when Redeads pose, all that good jazz. I have arachnophobia, and I want Skulltulas back. Like, I want that. So, but going off what Alex said, when it comes to like possible remakes of Zelda games, I know a lot of people want Minish Cap. I know a lot of people want Oracle games. I'm like, listen, just hand over Zelda 2 to Mercury Steam, please. That's a remake I want.
That'd be sick.
Like, I see why they just like that. It's like, no. Mercury Steam was able to turn Metroid 2, which was the worst Metroid game to ever grace this green earth, and they turned it into something magical. So, like, I have full confidence. I don't even dislike Zelda 2. I actually like Zelda 2. So, I want to see them tackle Zelda 2.
Well, I mean, cool. if they did Zelda 2, that would certainly be one interesting remake. To say the least. Like, it would either be, I think it would either be horrible or fantastic, and then surprisingly enough fantastic, because Zelda 2 is not really like the chosen child, so yeah. It would be interesting to see if it actually turns out well. And what I want this upcoming year is, I just want, or just in the future in general, it's just 3 things. Yeah, Minish Cap remake, hell yeah. I want Breath of the Wild 2 to be legitimately dark. Like, I want it to give me Majora's Mask vibes. I would be so happy if that happened, because we're never gonna get Majora's Mask 2, so this would be the second best thing in my life. And the third thing I would want is, and that would also make me very happy. I'm very much into the speed running and like glitching scene in The Legend of Zelda, and I know people like in the scene, speedrunners and stuff, and I watch that stuff. And I used to do content on it on my old second channel that's kind of dead now because YouTube killed it, called Game Architects. So I would love to see that Breath of the Wild 2 with its weird, wacky mechanics of going through stuff and everything, that it just completely, that they figure out, because in Breath of the Wild, they figured out how to completely break the game and do some insane tricks and stuff, you know? So I really hope that in Breath of the Wild 2, they will be able to do even more crazy stuff that will just blow my mind if I see it at ADGQ or something.
That'd be cool.
That's all I want. Those three things.
I'm not gonna say anything about Breath of the Wild 2 anymore because it's like beating a dead horse at this
That's
point.
fair. That's
We all
fair.
know what we want. We all know what we want.
We want it.
And the next thing is probably gonna get me a lot of hatred, but
Uh-oh.
Oh no.
I don't want any more remakes. I'm tired of remakes. I want a
Yeah.
new 2D Zelda game. Just make a new Zelda game based
That's
on the engine.
that's valid.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I get,
Jagger, but I agree with you.
I get
New game
I get-
always over remakes.
I kind of get why people say stuff like that, but does Minish Cap really need a remake? Doesn't it still look really, really good?
It
Just make the old
does.
games. Yeah, just make the old games accessible. You know, the whole
Sure.
reason why the Oracle games are like people are calling for a remake is also because they're. I think the only place where they're still accessible is the 3DS right now, aside from
Wii
their
U.
original.
And the Wii U.
Are you sure they're on the Wii U too? Because
the-
I have the Wii U. I couldn't
Well,
find them.
I know the Minish Cap is on Wii U.
Minish Cap is, but the Oracle games are not.
Oh no, yeah,
I
no.
think
Yeah,
those are pretty.
Yeah, the Oracle.
Those are pretty bad. They're almost not. They're not very accessible at this point. So, but you know, I was someone who actually my first game was Ocarina of Time. Then I played Majora's Mask. Then I had to wait for the Wind Waker, and then I started playing all the old Zelda games. So I started with Zelda 1 and all the old stuff. I could still get into that, even though it was long past its point where those graphics were still, you know, modern, so to speak, where they held up. You can still play the Oracle games, and they look a bit primitive, but they're extremely fun. I'd much rather just have them take the engine from Link's Awakening, the remake, because it already exists, so why not? Just make a brand new adventure. I can never fathom the idea of wanting a remake over a brand new adventure that nobody has played before, with something new, something surprising.
Sure.
I don't know. I'm just tired of remakes.
No, that's fair. I get that.
And I want, after Breath of the Wild 2, I want them to make new games and try to fill out the gaps between the big gaps that we're going to get from the open world games. 5-6 years waits are going to become the norm, and that means that we need a game every 3 years in between. And the 2D Zelda that Monster or Donnie here explained is absolutely what we need. And then add a little bit of Hyrule Warriors on the side, plus maybe some other unexpected collaborations, and there you have it. That's the future.
Yo, y'all are
of
making
Zelda.
me want to play some Zelda games
I
after
should
this. Holy
Yeah.
snap. Like,
And of course, let's not forget we need Link's crossbow training too.
Yes.
Come on,
Absolutely.
that is the
That's
sequel
free
we
money
need.
right there. It pretty much
Bro, I
is.
really want that.
Yeah.
I can
I
go
can't
back with my
believe-
Wii Blaster and I'm gonna
Bro.
go sicko mode on those
Alright.
skeletons.
I can't believe a legit Twilight Princess sequel died for that.
Yep.
That's true.
Yeah.
HMK, don't sour the
fun.
mood, please.
All right.
I will.
Okay.
No, I'm done with Nintendo, man. Like, no, I'm not actually done. But the cycles. Every time,
Please still
every
send
time-
me review copies.
No, every time tech demos get shown off when it has Zelda stuff going into it, I'm like, bro, we could have had this and we got robbed. That Space World demo that looked like an Ocarina of Time sequel, we could have that. We were robbed. Oh man, they reuse assets for that in Smash Bros. Man, I don't care. And then the Twilight Princess Wii U tech demo that showed Link in that. No, I'm gonna get mad. I'm sorry.
I know. All right. With that said, though, guys, where can we find you guys on the internet? Conrad, how about we start with you?
In the webs.
Okay, you can find me at Commonwealth Realm on YouTube and Twitter. YouTube is mostly where I upload a couple of times a week, mostly one Zelda video a week, and otherwise posting daily on Twitter. Yeah.
Awesome. And Dr. Wiley?
You can find me on YouTube under Dr. Wiley and on Twitter on Dr. Wiley Twitter and Instagram is Dr. Wiley YT from like YouTube, you know. I post one video a week and then I do a live stream where I mostly scream a lot and get mad at games and say horrendous stuff.
Let's go.
And have a lot of fun.
Let's go.
Yeah, to fair you remember that, the fun part.
HMK, where can we find you?
Hey guys, HMK can be found all over the interwebs by just plugging in HMKilla, which is HMKILLA, on whatever you can find me on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. You can find it all on the same handle. I stream pretty often on Twitch, and I upload at least 3 times a week over on YouTube. I do a lot of Zelda stuff, and I do a lot of Kingdom Hearts stuff if that interests you, along with Nintendo and Square Enix dragging behind. So yeah, give it a shot. I'm very loud and I get very hyped, and open your mind. Let me in.
Let me in as well. Like that's kind of
I need that in my life.
The master of hype.
And Miss Click, where can we find you at?
Thanks for having me. You guys can find me here on YouTube as Miss Click Gaming. I also have a VODs and a Shorts channel as well, where you can find all my content. I am live almost every day on Twitch, where we do a variety of things ranging from streaming games and promotion with Nintendo or Sony or Xbox. And we cover lots of other things too, anywhere from hosting panels for commentary. One of my recent ones that I loved doing was we got to interview the entire cast for Super Mario. And that was amazing to get to meet all of those people behind the series that we love. But other than that, we also have plenty of times where we sit and we talk about world events, drama. Like there's just a whole bunch of things that we do on the channel. So always, you're always welcome in to come hang out. And yes, anytime something new comes out for video games, you can bet your bottom dollar we're probably gonna be freaking out about it. So
Awesome. And then Monster Maze, where can we find you at?
I'm on YouTube, Monster Maze, with a space in between. Twitter, Monster Maze YT, and I make mostly cinematic, I guess, Zelda theories and documentaries. I'm a few hundred subscribers away from the big 100K, so if you want to come and support me, give me that.
Hey.
Please give me that silver play button.
Get it.
Yeah.
The new one is pretty
Get it.
nice.
Yeah, the
Oh,
new
is
one's
there a
better,
new one?
right?
It looks so good compared to the old one. It's crazy. I got the old
Here?
one. It's kind of garbage compared to the new one.
Wait, there's a
And the one
third
before-
No, I
button?
disagree.
Yeah,
I
there's
disagree.
a third one, right?
There's a third
Third
one?
one.
I just got mine. It looks like this.
All right,
It's
see,
like the new one is
really?
just a gigantic silver
the
plate.
second- I
basically.
have the second one. I like. Yeah, I have that.
That's the new one.
Yeah, I have that.
That's the I like this one. Like
It's
this,
not the
the-
3D.
Yeah,
don't think.
I prefer the old one.
Okay.
I
agree.
got that one
I
as well,
agree.
HMK.
I
I
don't
got
have
that
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 is
one
the
as
best
well.
one.
I personally like that one.
They are the
But
same
Yeah.
picture.
You got
But
it.
hey.
So yeah, you're gonna get it.
We're gonna get it. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Oh,
I
God.
don't tweet a lot, but you know, once in a while I do give updates.
Once in a blue moon.
Yeah.
I'm alive.
Or fight with Wiley.
Yeah. And we have banter on Twitter and we say stuff.
But all right, guys, we'll have everybody's links in the description down below. And thank y'all for watching. And be sure to leave a like on this video and tell us what you enjoyed about Zelda last year and what you hope to see this year. And we will see you all on the flip side, or whatever the next Zelda announcement is. We'll all be excited for that, I'm sure. All right, guys, see you
Don't
later.
cut us.
Put the swords
Bye.
down before
No
anybody
knife
gets
fight.
hurt. Before anybody gets stabbed.